Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear ladies and gentlemen. We are about to start our session on moral lessons from the Quran. The part that we are going to read today, or the passage we are going to read today, is taken from Surah Bani Israel, which is the 17th surah of the Quran. And we will cover this section actually in 3 episodes because it's just slightly lengthy. And these verses of Surah Bani Israel, they can rightly be termed as the 10 commandments of the Quran. We know that the Old Testament has those famous 10 commandments. Very similarly, and on similar lines, we can clearly see, and we shall see, that the verses that we will study in 3 episodes are actually nothing but the 10 commandments which are prescribed by the Quran. And if we are able to go through them in a way that makes us realize that how the Almighty takes pains, I would say, in reminding us of some of the basic lessons which humanity must learn, we will always cherish the fact that reading the Quran, especially passages which are able to motivate us, which are able to put our perspective in the right direction, they are really a means of propelling ourselves towards the right path. So I will share my screen with you, and the passage, as I said, this is from Surah Bani Israel. These are verses 23 to 25 that we will cover today, and the rest of them will be covered in 2 more episodes. So the words are: لا تجعل مع الله إلها آخر فتقعد مذموما مخذولا وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا ربكم أعلم بما في نفوسكم إن تكونوا صالحين فإنه كان للأوابين غفورا. Serve no other God except God, lest on the day of judgment you are left blameworthy and disgraceful. And remember that your Lord has enjoined you to worship none but Him, and to treat well your parents. If either or both of them attain old age in your life, if either or both of them attain old age in your life before you, show them no sign of impatience, nor scold them while answering, but speak to them with good etiquette and treat them with humility and tenderness, and say, Lord, be merciful to them the way they nursed me in childhood. Your Lord fully knows what is in your hearts. If you remain obedient to Him, then you should know that He forgives those who turn to Him. So this passage starts off with the negation of polytheism. It starts off with this all-important assertion that there is no God but God, and if people don't realize this and keep worshipping other deities, then they will be blameworthy and disgraced on the day of judgment. So we need to remember, my dear participants, that the ambience and the aura in which the Quran was revealed, the environment in which the Quran was revealed, polytheism was the tradition, it was the creed that was followed. Of course, the idolaters were the ones who willfully and willingly adopted polytheism as their religion. But as far as the people of the book are concerned, although they were monotheists, but they subscribed to some very heinous acts of polytheism. So we know that the Jews of Arabia, for example, they regarded Uzair or Azra to be the son of God, and Jesus, as we know, was regarded to be the son of God by the Christians. So polytheism was something which was so rampant in the era in which the Quran was revealed, that we find every second or third verse or even instance of a passage occurring in the Quran in which polytheism is always is proscribed. It is brought into discussion, and as we just saw a couple of sessions ago, when the famous elder of Arabia, Luqman, was advising his son when he was handing over the reins of leadership to him. He said that La tushrik billah, do not associate partners with God, in shirka la zulmun azim, because polytheism is a great transgression. So this transgression existed in Arabia in various forms, in various sorts, And that is why at times when today we read the Quran and we find so much mention of polytheism, people like Muslims who have a habit of reading the Quran, they do have this question arising in their minds that why is it that the Quran is always dealing about polytheism so much? So the answer is that the atmosphere and the environment in which the Quran was revealed was such that it had to be dealt in a very detailed way, and that is why we find the Quran mentioning in abundantly. And we have to understand that the Quran was revealed to the foremost addressees of the Prophet Muhammad, and these foremost addressees were plagued with this ailment. So this particular passage also starts off with this verse that we need to understand that as far as the Quran is concerned, as far as the details of the Quran are concerned, in all such instances, it is basically that we have to realize that monotheism is the only thing accepted to God. And even if the people of the book, they are ones who have actually deviated from their monotheism, but they are accepted as monotheists because they subscribe to God, they don't willfully associate partners with God, although the Almighty has not accepted their definition of monotheism. For example, the Christians do regard Trinity to be an expression of monotheism in their own peculiar way. But the Quran has said, "Inna Allah salisu walaqad kafara allazina kafaru inna Allah salisu salasa." Those who say that God is three of the third, they have committed disbelief. So this is something that we need to understand. And when we teach Quran to our younger generations, we have to tell them that because of the fact that the Quran is also situated in a historical milieu, in a historical environment, so the topics and the subjects which come up have a lot to do with the immediate and the foremost addressees of the Quran. So this is something which the Quran says in a very vehement manner, that as far as associating partners with God is concerned, this is something that no one has any authority to do so. And that is why, as a result, it says that وَقَضَىٰ رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, that your Lord has enjoined you to worship none but Him. So therefore, if there is no God but Him, if there is no other deity but Him, then it is but natural that we have to worship Him. Worship is only His right. We just cannot turn to other people. And at times we are very subtly ignoring or being careless in this worship. And this verse actually cautions and prods us and tells us that for all issues that we face, for all problems that we may face, for anything that might come to our mind, any wish, any desire, any problem, we have to turn to God. The smallest of things that we might require, we must ask God for those things, because this shows our sincerity, and this shows our involvement with the fact that we believe in one single God. And immediately after expressing His own right, what the Almighty has said is that not only you must recognize my right by worshiping me, by being obedient to me, by following what I say, the second thing which immediately follows this is that you have to treat your parents with kindness. So you can see, and this happens in the Quran in a number of instances in which the rights of God, wherever they are stated, immediately after that you'll find the rights of the parents being stated. So the words are وَبِالْ وَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. You have to treat your parents with kindness. You must tell them that as far as any difference of opinion is concerned, yes, you can have that difference of opinion. You can have a very polite discussion on any disagreement that you may have, but disrespect, being rude to them, or scolding them in any way, as we will just see the verse goes on to say, is absolutely uncalled for. So, bil walidaini ihsana, they are the ones who have brought us into existence. They are selfless people. They have sacrificed so much to not only bring us into existence, but at the same time, they are ones who have spent their own lives in a way that they have invested time, effort, energy, resources for the betterment of their children. So there is nothing which we can do even to think of repaying them. Perhaps this cannot be done, but what best can be done is to at least be thankful to them, to treat them with kindness, especially when they reach that ripe old age when they literally turn into babies, and they need the same attention as small children do, because this requires a lot of patience, and this requires a lot of perseverance, and reminding ourselves continuously that we were like them in their laps many years ago, and they never became impatient. They never forsook their duties, and they were uh, they were very accommodating of their young children. They sacrificed their sleep, their all that they could in order to bring comfort to their children. So this is one of the very important areas which the Quran speaks of regarding the respect which parents deserve. And then it says, "Imma yablughanna indakal kibara ahaduhuma aw kilahuma, fala taqul lahuma uffin wala tanharhuma." So if either of both of them reach old age in your presence, so the Quran says if this happens, that they reach old age in your presence, show them no sign of impatience, nor scold them while answering, but speak to them with good etiquette and treat them with humility and tenderness. So you see, this is what the Quran has repeatedly stressed, that if you think that your parents have grown old, and because of it growing old, they have become cranky and they are fussing about things, then just remember your own past when you were very similar, and you were similarly so demanding in the laps of your parents, and behaving in a way that you would throw a lot of tantrums. So the Quran says that when either of them reach old age before you, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. The word uff in Arabic means don't show disrespect. Be polite to them. فَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا, and don't even think of scolding them, because this is something which is absolutely uncalled for. They need your patience. You need to understand, we as children or grown-up children need to understand that when they each reach this age, becoming cranky or becoming impatient or becoming childlike is something which they cannot help. It is beyond them. It is a natural life cycle in which all of us pass, that when we become old, we behave like little children. And like behaving like little children is something which always brings us this sense of impatience, and we do become angry and annoyed. But it is here that we have to exercise restraint. The Quran says, "Fala taqul lahuma uffin." Don't be disrespectful to them. Show them your full respect. Be kind to them. Of course, what is understood here is that if parents think that they are in a position to govern you or to force you to do something, then this verse does not condone that at all. Because we know that at times this verse is used by parents because parents understand this verse, or many people understand this verse to mean that you just cannot argue in front of your parents, which actually to them means that you cannot differ with your parents. This is not the meaning of this verse. It does not say that you cannot have a difference of opinion, or parents have this authority to enforce their views on their grown-up children. So as far as grown-up children are concerned, they have all the right to decide the course of their life vis-a-vis their careers, the spouse they would like to choose, or any other major decision they would like to make. But as far as the parents are concerned, they have not been given this right that we have to obey them, even if it is against our natural desires. So that is why we need to note one thing, my dear participants, that never ever in the Quran do we find a verse which says that you obey your parents. This is a grave misconception. There is not a single verse which says that you have to obey your parents. Yes, it is said that you have to obey God, obey the Prophet, and as far as parents are concerned, wherever they're mentioned, you'll find in the Quran, it is that you have to treat them with kindness. You have to treat them with politeness. So this is where we have to understand that yes, we have to give them full respect. We just cannot be impatient with them. We cannot be disrespectful with them. We cannot be impudent with them. We have to be very caring and affectionate. But this doesn't mean that they are going to govern everything, or they are the final word in all our undertakings. This is not the purport of this verse, neither of any other verse which is found in the Quran. So on the one hand, children and grown-up children must learn and must realize the importance and respect their elders, especially their parents, have. And on the other hand, these parents must also realize that if this is what the Quran has invested them with respect and authority, it does not at all mean that it is giving them this unlimited authority of actually driving their mature children wherever they would like to, in whichever direction they would like to. So as far as personal choices are concerned, they can, of course, out of experience, speak of the fact that, well, this is something which you should not adopt because you might end up very ashamed or embarrassed or in a loss. But that's all that they can do or they should do. Or once their grown-up children have decided something regarding any important matter, they have to accept that, even if they know that this is something which could lead them to absolute destruction, because this is how God has made all of us. He has given us this freedom of choice. Once we turn to mature age, every single one of us, of course, we should benefit from the experience of elders, but if we think that there is something we need to do, and we are absolutely convinced that we should do it, then none of us should regard this, or none of the parents should regard this to be against their obedience, because, as I said, this is a concept which is totally alien to the Quran, that you have to obey your parents. You have to respect your parents. That is what the Quran says. And then finally, when this passage ends, you can see it ends on a beautiful prayer. It says that you must not scold them, and you have to قُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا, which of course means that you have to speak them in kind words, and when you're answering them. And then it says that you also must remember that وَخْفِزْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ ذُلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, that you should have that tenderness and that politeness and that gentle attitude when you're talking to them. And the prayer which is mentioned is of utmost importance, that most of us would be knowing by heart. It says that you pray to the Almighty regarding your parents by the words Rabbir hamhuma kama rabbayani saghira, that God be merciful with them the way they were merciful to us, the way they nursed us when we were children. And then it says that your Lord he fully knows what is in your hearts. If you remain obedient to them, then you should know that He forgives those who turn to Him, which of course means that at times we do get impatient. At times, in spite of knowing the fact that parents have a great respect that we should show them, but we might slip, we might show that disobedience, we might become rude and impertinent. But the Quran is absolutely specific in this. It says that no, if there ever is a blemish, then God knows that it was done out of, it was not deliberate, it was inadvertent, and God is going to forgive you. So remember the prayer that has been taught to us, and these beautiful words. Let us make them part of our daily prayers and our daily supplications, especially for our parents. Rabbir hamhuma kama rabbayani saghira, that Lord have mercy on them the way they nursed us, the way they took care of us, the way they showed mercy to us when we were infants, and we would crawl, we would need their guidance, we would need their help to just grow. We could not have done anything without their help. And this was only possible because they made it upon themselves. They regarded this responsibility as their first responsibility to rear and groom their children. So with these words, I come to an end to my today's talk, and I'm now ready for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Right now, we just have one raised hand. Fatma, you may have your question now.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is regarding backbiting. It's very common, this thing, backbiting, and especially in very difficult situations where relationships break or somebody divorces you and then they block you from all the forums. So the person is not approachable and you cannot directly express your anger or hurt towards him. And you end up backbiting in such difficult situations. Like you'll find a friend and you'll just vent out your anger. So how to refrain from backbiting in such difficult situations?
You're absolutely right that when a person is very hurt, it is very difficult to restrain one's anger and somehow control it. But I would suggest what has been mentioned in the Quran regarding the Prophet Yaqub, regarding his son Joseph or Yusuf, when we know what happened with him and the way he was thrown into a well and the way the torture which his father had to go through. And the golden words which are recorded in the Quran are the ones, I think, which show us the way in this particular situation. And he said that innama ashku bassi wa huzni ilallah, that God, I don't have any complaints with other people. I present my complaint, my pleading, and my sorrow before you. You take care of my broken heart. So it's like talking to God, venting your emotions not before someone but before God, which is the ideal. That we it's like consigning our worries to Him. It's like talking to Him. And I can tell you out of experience of so many people that when they consign matters to God, they feel that light mood in them. They feel as if they have been liberated, they have been set free, and the anger in them has suddenly died down because they have reposed and consigned this anger to God, and they have petitioned this before God and asked Him, requested Him that God, now it's you, now you take care of it and you take care of me, because it's difficult for me to control my hurt, and only through your help can I do it. So solely by attaching ourselves to God and venting our emotions, if even if we have to just talk to Him and cry before Him, one thing which helps a lot is to prostrate ourselves before Him, not just in during the prayer, but on normal occasions, on other occasions when we feel that hurt, just prostrate ourselves, go down in prostration and talk to Him. And we need to just tell Him that God, this is how we feel, or this is how I feel, and I'd like your interference and I'd like your help. And so many times what happens is that when one raises one's head from prostration, he or she feels that relief and that comfort, even if that hurt might not immediately go away, but you feel that relief. You feel as if someone has addressed your complaint. Other than that, at times, of course, it does become important that you share your grief with people. So, for example, if it is something which you need to do, and talking to God, even after that, you feel that anger in you, then of course you can vent your anger before some confidant, and that confidant should be someone who should know very well that the person against whom that you have that complaint is someone with whom you just cannot communicate your words or your grief or your hurt, because this is going to aggravate matters, and make that person also realize that the person that has hurt you, he's not a totally he's not an embodiment of sin, or he's not someone who is always hurting people. So that the other side of the picture, you have some of the good points that the person might have before the person that you're confiding in also known to that person. Because you see, what happens is that when you talk to people and vent your anger, people get influenced by your emotions and they get angry the way you are angry. But it is here that you have to guard yourself, and it is here that it is best to avoid this as much as possible. But if it is not possible to avoid it, then you must actually try to balance this out by pointing out the fact that, yeah, well, yes, I am hurt by that person, but at the same time, I pray for that person, and that person has such and such qualities as well. I do acknowledge them, and I'm talking to you just to vent just to make myself relieved of my inner emotions. And precisely this is what psychologists also do, because when you are hurt to the ultimate extent and you need medical help, so when you talk to psychologists, so the history that they take exactly is something in which they ask you to describe what has happened, and then again that is something which is a confidential thing. So if the person is not a psychologist, he's a friend, someone that you confide in, then you must tell that person that this is something which is highly confidential, and it must not influence that person's opinion in a way that he is swayed against the person by whom you have been hurt. So this is like taking a lot of precautions. But as I said, because these precautions are very difficult, I mean, things do leak out, and I mean, they do have a negative effect. So the best and the ideal way would be to just confide with God, and the amount of relief that you might gain by confiding with God is something which is unparalleled.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is very helpful. Can you just mention the surah and the ayat number which you mentioned?
This is a very famous verse. This is in Surah Yusuf, which is the 12th verse of the Quran. You just Google it. It says, "Innama ashku bassi wa huzni Allah," that God, I present my complaint and my sorrow to my God. So just type these words and you're bound to get the verse. It is in Surah Yusuf.
Thank you. Nusrat Khwaja, you can ask your question now.
Yeah, except today's topic is very touching actually. When we are young, we don't realize, but now when I look back at my life, I realize that I have been at times very disrespectful to my father, for example.
Mhm.
But he's gone now.
Mm.
I mean, how can I
Right.
apologize to him?
Mm. Obviously, this is something of an impossibility, but all that you can do is continuously seek forgiveness from God. And when on the day of judgment you are able to meet Him, you should try your best to apologize at that time. And I can tell you that fathers and mothers are such that when they see their children in remorse and in repentance and they feel ashamed of what they have done, 9 out of 10 times, or maybe times, they would end up forgiving you, inshallah. So just hope for the best that this happens, and at the same time, try to make amends by being a good father yourself, and teach this to your children that how important it is to respect elders and how important it is to earn that respect. You see, respect is always commanded. It is not demanded. When you command respect, when you have an impeccable moral character. So by making amends and by teaching this to your younger generation, if you're able to, there could be some compensation that could be done.
Thank you. That is the question I'm sure so many of us have in our hearts. Thank you for asking that. Dania, you can go ahead now.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum, sir. My question is the follow-up question that I heard them by not listening to their voices or my parents. This is the line that also runs in my mind. My story is that I have earned my education from one of the best institutes of Pakistan, but when I came back to my village, I somehow found that I have to work a lot. I had to work a lot here because in the village, in the remote areas of Pakistan, most of the work is really required at the grassroots level. We have to work a lot, but being a girl in this society, I had to face a lot of challenges, and one of the challenges that I have faced is with respect to my parents, because when I went to the field, and their queries and their concerns regarding me, I'm not doubting their concern about me, but it was one of, you can say, one of the major clash. It is one of the major clash between me and my parents, because I want to work for the welfare of other people, and they're concerned about me that being a girl, it's not safe for me to work here in this society. So one thing that I feel that it's my moral obligation to work for the welfare of people and to deliver the knowledge and the skills and the education that I have earned, that this universe has given me. So I have to transfer that. But my parents are not very much cooperative, or you can say they're not mentally in line with the things that I want to deliver in this society. So what should I do?
Well, this is, of course, a very difficult challenge and a difficult scenario because it's more related to our cultural traditions. And in rural areas, contrary to urban areas, we have very strict traditions in which parents and elders, they have a very strict view regarding certain activities, particularly related to women and girls. And this is something of it's a huge challenge. Of course, it's difficult to present a solution outright, but what best, of course, can be done is to continue with what you like to do. And when there is a difference of opinion or there is a chance that there would be a clash, just be very polite, be firm in what you would like to do, because this is your right. If you would like to work for the welfare of your people, this is the right that no one, not even your parents, can take away from you. God has given you this right. But at the same time, avoid clashes. And the best way to avoid this clash is not to argue back, and always tell them that, well, that I listen to you, what you have said. I will inshallah reflect on what you said, but please, I will do what I understand. Never get into, try to avoid arguments. And if there is an argument, especially a heated one, and one of your parents or both of them get angry, just listen to them and just let them vent their anger. And what happens is that if you don't reply back, if you smile back, in fact, and if you don't give them the bad face, then slowly they also tend to realize that they are dealing with someone who is very resolute, who is very uh, he's very determined to do what she would like to do. So I think on the one hand, doing whatever you would like to do is your birthright, and this is something which God has given you. You keep on doing that, I would say, but try to do it in a way that.
Mhm. Dr. Shehzad, I want to share another thing that this is one of the thing or the line that I used to listen a lot. There is no need to work for these people. They don't deserve this. And you'll regret doing or investing your time on these people. I mean, and I am really concerned that isn't it like I'm not I mean I'm not obeying them. I'm very open to this because
That's you're not. It's not that you're disobeying them. What they are doing is they're presenting their own opinion, and they're telling you that working for other people is of no use. This is their view, in which they have every right to hold that view. And on the contrary, you can hold a different view and just tell them that, okay, I respect your views. If you think that there is no use working for such people, this is what you think. But I think that this is a productive thing, and just go on what you think you'd like to do or you are doing. Just don't get in a situation in which there is a clash. And if there is a clash, by clash I mean if there is a verbal exchange, just just be silent. Just listen to whatever they say, and keep on doing what you think is right. Because if you don't reply back, if you're not rude, this is going to happen for some time, maybe a couple of months, and then it's just going to die away, because they will realize that you are very determined, and at the same time, because you should continuously tell them that you are my parents and I would like to serve you. So the other thing that you can do is that you increase your service to them. If on the one hand you are not following their advice, then on the other hand, in order to balance your this sort of an imbalanced situation, what you can do is do what they like best, what you can serve them with, become more obedient to them, do something which they like more, and sort of balance the situation as much as you can. But don't give up on your dreams, because you have a right to your dreams. And on the other hand, if you keep steadfast, you will realize that one day they will understand, because when they see the results and when they see things coming their way as well, and when they see that their daughter is being respected by the society, you will see that how they change their opinion as well. The only thing is just don't talk back to them, never be harsh to them, never be rude to them, be very polite, but at the same time, never give up on what you think that you must do.
thank you so very much, Dr. Saab. I really need those lines and those things in my life. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Thank you, Dania. Asif Gumra, you can have your question now.
Yeah, I have one comment to make to Sister Dan. What I'm saying that if situation like that, I think if we involve parents to come and see what kind of work you're doing it, sometimes their involvement change their perspective as well. So I think I try to take them with you in your work, whatever you're doing it. I think that will help as well in change the perspective of, because everybody have a different world, different tunnel vision, living in a different, So once you take them out of the comfort zone and put into your zone, they may have looked things differently. Just a comment. Jazakallah.
Rafiq Khwaja, you can have your question now.
Dr. Shehzad, I wanted to ask you, because sometimes one gets pretty frustrated with the situation, and आप इतनी दुआ करते हैं and you feel कि अल्लाह दुआ सुन ही नहीं रहा, so can you get angry with God? Can you sort of express yourself in a bit of a anger and say, please God, I've been asking you, why aren't you helping me? Or you think this would be very wrong? Can I express my sentiments to God openly, how I'm feeling?
Well, when you are very spontaneous, at times you don't even think and you express these things. But for a more rational approach, I would say that we have to understand the philosophy of supplications and the du'as that we make. If we have no answer to our prayer, to our du'as, then we need to understand that there is something good which is hidden in by not answering them. Because you see, what we at times would like to happen is something because of our limited knowledge and experience, we might not realize that at the end of the day, they might not be very good for us. So God at times does not answer our calls and our prayers, so that had they been answered, something bad would have happened, something would have been bothersome to you. So, and other times, God, of course, would also like to put you through certain trials and tests. So, God has His own wisdom. So, instead of getting angry with God, trust God even more. Because if something is not happening according to your will, it's remember it is happening according to God's will, and that is something which is always in our favor. If He is deferring our prayer to be accepted, or if He thinks that that prayer, if accepted, would lead to some misfortune that we are not comprehending at the moment, or also at times this does happen, although it's something of the nature of the fact that at times God doesn't grant our wishes just to make us realize that there is something wrong that we might be doing in our lives and we need to pay attention. So you see, there are a number of things which are possible. And it's instead of being angry, I think what should actually happen is that our trust should increase even further in Him, and we should tell ourselves that, well, if this is not happening, then there has got to be something very, very good hidden in it for me, which I'm not realizing at the moment. And one thing that might help you in this regard is introspection. That maybe in the past, if you could reflect on the various events of your life, and you must have prayed previously also, and previously also some of your wishes might not have been granted. And there could have been instances in which you would have just said, well, yes, it is good that they were not granted, but had they been granted, such and such a problem would have resulted. So when I look back in my life, I find so many things that when I pray that God give me this or make this happen, and it did not happen. And when I look back, I always say, well, yes, it was good that it didn't happen, because had it happened, I would have been in a very big spot of bother. So I think introspection, and then trust in God, and then the fact that God will never mean ill for you. He has something stored up for you, is something which will make you realize that your connection with God will actually increase if this happens.
So the first written question I received is, they would like to know if conveying rewards to the deceased for Isal Sawab, when this happens, whether or not the deceased person gets reward for that sadaqah in their name.
There is no basis of Isal Sawab either in the Quran or in any authentic ahadith. The Quran says, Laysa lil insani illa ma sa'a, that the person will get in the hereafter for what he had strove for or striven for in this world. So whatever he did in this world is something which is going to accrue in his account. Other than that, if he did something and he passed away, and that thing was something of beneficial to mankind, like some piece of knowledge or some welfare activity which continued to provide benefit to people, but was initiated by him in his own life or her own life, then of course that reward would continue to accrue in his account. But if we are doing something righteous and then trying to transfer the reward of that to some other person's account, this is not only against justice, it is also against the Quran, which explicitly says that reward is something that you have to earn yourself. You just cannot reap the rewards of other people, because this would be unfair. You do something very little yourself and then accumulate a lot of reward from other people. You are being judged, and your judgment is going to take place on the basis of your deeds.
Okay. The next question is about what is Islamic perspective on visiting parents' graves and reciting Quran and praying for their forgiveness in the graveyard? Is it desirable for the sawab, or is it just a cultural tradition?
Well, visiting in the graves is something which is very good. You should visit the graves. The Prophet is reported to have said that if you visit the graves, of course, and pray for your parents or your dear departed, this is something of a prayer that we should all make. And it has another utility, and that is that it reminds us of our own death. It reminds us of our own final destination. But as far as reciting the Quran is concerned on their graves, which I just said, that transferring the reward of reciting the Quran to others is something which is never it's not found in the Quran, and it was never the practice of the Prophet. We know that so many companions died in his lifetime. His wife Khadija died. One of his wives Zainab died in his lifetime. So there were so many great Sahabas who were martyred or killed. We don't find this practice anywhere being conducted. So reciting the Quran for the dear departed has no basis. Yes, visiting the graveyard is something that you can always do. It's recommended so that we are reminded of our own final destination. And women, of course, like men, both of them can, and men and women both can visit the graveyard and pay their respects to their parents or to any of their departed relatives.
Thank you. Another question is it obligatory to touch fingers to the ears when we start prayer and say Allahu Akbar?
It's not obligatory. You just have to raise your hands like this. So it's like this. It's like beginning the prayer by raising your hands. Whether you touch your ears or you bring them close to the ear, this is nothing of a mandatory sort. So it's like raising your hands like this.
Right. So another question that I have is, would you be counted as a sinner if you hurt someone when you don't intend to, but the other person, because of your careless action or words, is hurt without your realization?
You would be regarded as an inadvertent sinner if I use this word, and the thing would be that you should go to that person and apologize to that person and tell that person that you never did it inadvertently, it was never deliberate, it happened and you're sorry about it. So I think this is something which the other person would also realize, that things which are done without any intent, and they're done maybe because of some carelessness, or at times because of the fact that you are not even paying attention to certain things, they do warrant this forgiveness. And I'm sure if this is done in a sincere way, people do tend to forgive such people.
Another nuance of the same question has been asked there. And if you are hurt by another person inadvertent remarks, and if you do express to them that it hurts you, and if they continue the practice and forget about it, how would you cope with it?
Well, then that would not be inadvertent. So if you expressed your sorrow and told them that if you've done something inadvertent, please don't do it, and in spite of them they're continuing with those remarks, it only means that this was not inadvertent, it was intentional. So you have a right to feel hurt then, and of course you can ask that person that this is something that if you keep on doing, I'm not going to forgive you before God. And if it is something which is of the nature of some physical injury or any other injury through which any court of law can be invoked, of course that is also an option if need be. Otherwise, if a person continues to do something, then it never remains deliberate, then it becomes something which is intentional.
Okay. Who should be the preference for a woman if there is to be a choice made between her husband and her mother during the time of any need at the same time?
Actually, this is a question that we cannot answer. It has to be answered on a case-to-case basis. And even before that, we must try to understand that why at all did the situation arise that you have to make such a choice? Because it only arises in certain extreme circumstances when things go unchecked for a long time and matters reach to this extent that they become irrevocable, or you just cannot have them mended. So I think unless a real life situation is presented with the facts, only then some answer can be given. But other than that, this is a choice that a person should try not to get into. And if he does, then I think that the thing which should go or govern his actions should be justice. If one of them is doing injustice and making this choice happen between that person, that you choose me over the other person or choose her over me, then and that person has no other choice left. Of course, this should be avoided as much as possible. But let us suppose that there is no other choice, then I think wherever justice lies or wherever justice points to should be the area one should select.
Okay, I'm taking a one-off question from Facebook. We usually do not take those questions, but because it's related to the topic today, kindly elaborate on how we can reverse the damage that we have already done to the relationship with our parent because of our disrespectful attitude, even when parents are not ready to give up control.
If they are alive and they are in front of you, of course, the only way out is to go and apologize to them and to tell them that you are extremely sorry for what you did in the past. You misbehaved with them. You spoke back in rude words. So the best way would be to apologize to them and try to make amends by becoming extra affectionate, extra caring, and even more so by asking your own children also to show that respect. So I think you have to make amends and think of the best ways to make those amends, and only hope for the best that if you make these amends, then they would forgive you.
The end of the lineup of questions for today.
Okay, inshallah, we'll see tomorrow.